What's the goal of these workshops? Let's start at the beginning and tell me a little bit about the workshops you're doing for SB1, Senate Bill 1, and then ultimately what's the goal for these workshops?
Well, we've been teaching courses on civil discourse for the past few years. And so we have the civil discourse framework that we use, and it's worked really well for us. And then when SB1 was enacted, and there's new guidance around intellectual diversity and how that should play out in the classroom, we just found that these tools that we'd already been using really aligned with the goals of SB1 in encouraging critical thinking, allowing students to express opinions, test ideas. And so we created a workshop that was framed in terms of SB1 and talk about how our tools align and can support professors in the classroom as they're teaching about controversial topics.
Fundamentally, we're offering tools that we've been using for years to help people teach in ways that foster intellectual diversity in their classrooms.
You've already finished some of these workshops. How do you think they've gone, and what are you kind of learning through the process of going through these workshops?
It's been going really well. People seem to come away with a better understanding of what SB1 is asking of them in the classroom and feeling more confident about how to discuss controversial issues in a way that's going to welcome different perspectives.
What are some of the misconceptions around Senate Bill 1?
One thing that people worry about is when students bring up ideas or perspectives in class that are not supported by the standards of the field in terms of either theoretical or empirical evidence. And they're worried that they have to treat those views as equally plausible to other content in order to be welcoming of intellectual diversity. And that's really not the case. They can still apply the standards of their discipline and really should, because that's their job. Is to teach the students using their expertise. We do recommend that they're careful and curious, charitable, conscientious in how they respond to students in these moments. And they give students tools to respond to one another in ways that are respectful. And so they can take each other seriously, even if they then are going to critically engage with these ideas. So they don't have to simply accept them. And they also don't have to let students hijack a conversation and take it wherever they want it to go. They can still manage classroom dynamics, manage classroom conversations in ways that are aligned with their course goals.
So one misconception that we see a lot is that faculty no longer have the academic freedom to identify what topics ought to be covered, to identify which topics aren't appropriate for their classroom, and to construct the syllabus in accordance with those conclusions. There's no need for an evolutionary biology professor to teach about creationism in the classroom. There's no need for anybody to teach content that is not accepted as reliable or reasonable within the context of their field. And SB1 does nothing to change that.
What are some of the tactics you're discussing that relate to facilitating classroom discussions about controversial topics?
So we introduced the 4Cs framework. That's be curious, be charitable, be conscientious, be constructive. That's a civil discourse framework that was created here at OSU back in 2019. We've been using for different programming since then. So we introduced that and encourage them to give students those tools and encourage students to use those principles when they're engaging in conversation with each other. And what we really talk about is how they can facilitate those principles when they're facilitating the conversation.
Yeah, so a lot of times when people are facilitating a discussion, what they're doing is using questions and other discussion techniques to get people to arrive at a point of view or an answer to the question that they had at the beginning. So if I was going to try to teach somebody how to calculate the area of a triangle, I might be able to ask questions to get them to come up with an answer. But that's not the way that you should be facilitating conversations about questions that are genuinely contestable. What you ought to be doing is helping the students make progress on their questions, helping them think more critically, more creatively, more collaboratively with one another as they look for answers to difficult questions that are genuinely contestable. And what we recommend is an approach called procedurally directed teaching. And so I would say that the two parts that we're offering are the 4Cs, which offer a description of the virtues of civil discourse, like what is civil discourse. And then procedurally directed facilitation is the orientation towards facilitation that allows them to apply the 4Cs in the classroom without facilitating towards a predetermined end, but instead just helping the students make progress towards better answers to tough questions.
So part of that is distinguishing between questions where there's reasonable disagreement that you want to explore in discussion, and questions where there are determinate answers according to the field or according to the assigned readings. And so you use different types of discussions to achieve different types of goals. But we're really focused on controversial topics in the sense that there is reasonable disagreement. And so there are going to be disagreements, differences that students bring to the discussion that are worth exploring. That's what we're really focused on.
How do your teaching about civil discourse help prepare faculty and staff for navigating conversations in the classroom?
One of the ways in which we encourage them to use the 4 Cs is to get students to really listen to each other and take each other seriously by being curious about their ideas and being charitable. So being empathetic, assuming they have good intentions, and giving them the benefit of the doubt if they say something that seems offensive or seems wrong-headed. And so that creates an atmosphere in which everyone can share their ideas and we can come to understand one another before we respond and critically engage. Too often, people are just listening, waiting for their turn to talk, and they're not really understanding what others are saying. And so it's about getting the students to talk to one another in this way where they're first understanding and then they're being conscientious and constructive reasoners when they get to the stage of critically examining and engaging with the ideas that have been presented.
Yeah. One thing I think it's really important to emphasize is that if nobody had been doing work on civil discourse at our university, we would be in a difficult situation because we need to invent new tools and new approaches to respond to some of the things within SB1. But because of the work that CEHV has been doing for years in developing the 4 Cs, in promulgating it, in like exploring its nuances and working out like how to apply it in different contexts, the only thing we need to do is to lean back on our traditions. Like the only thing we really need to do at Ohio State to teach in ways that are consistent with SB1 is to look back to the work that we've been doing for years and just celebrate it.
We've been getting questions from other universities. We've had other universities adopt the 4 Cs, contact us and ask about copyright. And we have a Creative Commons license, and anyone who finds it useful can use it. And so other universities have adopted it, and we're really happy that it's useful elsewhere.
What are some of the tools you hope people who attend your workshops take with them?
It's a grounding in the 4 Cs that gives them an overall theoretical orientation towards civil discourse. And then it's a set of concrete interventions that they can use the very next day if they want to in their classrooms.
Yeah, I really hope that they walk away feeling more comfortable facilitating and engaging with students around controversial issues. And I hope that they feel that they have the tools to really empower students to talk about their ideas, but also to be open to one another. One of the great things about being at a university like OSU is that students get to be around people with very different backgrounds and perspectives. And so there's so many learning opportunities. And so I hope that our tools help faculty and instructors feel more comfortable capitalizing on that and helping students really gain the benefit of that.